Going to run, let's start adding some stuff to this. And I forgot to ask, hopefully the font size is good, or like the screen size is good. Got a couple people watching. Give me a yay or nay in the chat. Probably should have asked that sooner, but it looked good to me when I was tinkering. So let's get started here. So the first thing we want to do inside here, we've got the run subcommand, and now I want to start to do some system calls to create these things. That's new of him, so it's perfect. Yeah. Let's see here. Font size is good. All right, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Got someone from Brazil. Welcome. All right, here we go. CMD. Well, first, I don't know. Let's leave the print line because I like knowing how I develop. I like fun print line stuff. So let's hear CMD exec. Now this is pretty interesting. So we're going to use the exec package to run a command. So this would be like running an interactive command at the terminal. And then say here os args 2. And then we're going to pass in os args 3 and then iterate through that. So 3. Like I said, a lot of this stuff with the container isolation I did get from Liz Rice's presentation, so I won't even pretend that I understand exactly what every single thing in here is doing. But I do know that the CMD STDN, what I'm doing is mapping the OS streams to the command, so that way they get output to the terminal that you see. So if we do equals OS STDN and CMD standard out, ST standard here, we want OS standard error. And that maps it all. And now we're going to do the system call. And I don't know much beyond the system calls, but that's how, those are the set of instructions that are going to be set to the kernel and then back. And so that's how you're going to be interacting. And they use that to create the namespaces. And then the C groups are actually controlled by files, which we'll see in a second. So let's do our first system call. So this is from the sysproc attribute of the CMD. So sysproc. And I probably should import package so I can get some intelligence. This is call, and I want the OS exec as well. There we go. Reference system. This is call. Attribute. And we want to clone a couple flags. So clone flags are going to be the system syscall.clone, and I want the new UTS. New underscore UTS. And again, that is the namespace that's going to control, I believe, the domains. So on a Linux system, it's going to control the domains and then the host name. That's going to isolate that particular portion. No new, yep, we don't need that. Thanks. So now we'll call the command. So this is setting up and configuring the CMD that's going to be executed. And now we're actually going to call it. So CMD.run. So that actually executes, and then we got to handle our error. So if error not equal nil, we're going to panic. Now, what's interesting here, see if I'm remembering this right. So with this first system call, what's going to happen is if we use that and we don't create another process inside of it. The process that initially called to create the namespace isn't going to be running inside the namespace. It's going to be the call that it's going to be the executable that called the namespace. And so what we need to do is create a child process that is spun up inside of that afterwards. So it'll be, we need to create another function called child that will be able to create a process that's inside the namespace. And then that process we can manipulate and control with the C groups and also with the namespaces. Sharing a GitHub link. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. So the GitHub link to what I'm hacking on right now is right here. Hopefully it makes it through. If it doesn't make it through to LinkedIn, let me know. It's like it's going to YouTube right now. And I'll throw it up on the screen. Just hope it might look better. It's a shorter URL. Actually, the easiest way would be just to go to my GitHub, which I'll put a link here. And then it's containers from scratch CLI is the repo. Where did I do that before? If we go to banners, let's create a new banner. So there's my GitHub. Let's not make it move across the screen. That's kind of annoying. There. Why is it moving? It shouldn't be moving. Save. Now show. There we go. So there's my GitHub. If you go there, containers from scratch CLI, that's the code base I'm working off of. I'm rebuilding a couple of the things that I've already done just to kind of show off the container isolation aspect. And then in future streams, I'll be diving into creating the build command and working from there. But thanks for the question. All right, now where were we here? Oh yeah, just to reiterate. So at the first call, when the run command runs, it's going to create a namespace, but that process that called it isn't in the namespace. So we need to create a new process that's inside. And so we need to do some kind of a trickery there. Luckily, Liz figured that out already. And so I can just kind of copy her code, pretty much. So if we come back here, I think that's the run command. Is this the right? Am I referencing the right? Yeah, isolate host name. So right now it's not going to work. Let's see what would happen if this. Let's just figure it. Let's run it and see what happens. Let's write that and go back to terminal 1 here. Be sudoing these. Creating namespaces. Here we go. So now I'm inside of a namespace that has a unique UTS namespace, but I can't necessarily change the host name. So I think if I were to change the host name now, let's see here. Host name. To match the host. Let me just pull up some of my notes quick. I can share that. Oh, let's run that again. We can say, hopefully I don't change my host name. We'll figure this out. Host name, just to make sure there's that. Let's repeat that host name. Now let's set it to container. Sorry. Host name container. If I look at the host name, it's changed, but when I exit this, it won't stick and I can't set it in the program beforehand. And now if I do host name, we're back. So that proves that here's the isolation for the host name. If we run this again, now I'm inside the namespace, the UTS namespace, and it's pulling the host name from the host. It's sharing it, but I can overwrite it, and now I've created the isolation for the host name. So if we do, like I did before, host name container. Oh, Alice isn't going to do anything. Host name. I have changed it, but I'm not changing it before it starts, and that's where that child process comes in that I was mentioning. to be able to do that. So if we close this now, I can see that I've left alone the actual host. So host meaning the container host, which is my WSL instance here, is unchanged from modifying the host name that was running in that unique namespace, also called a container. So there's that. Well, thanks for joining, Andy. Yeah. Long time in the making. I hope to make this a more regular thing. And just speaking through this is super helpful for me. It's, I'm getting the repetition in there. I'm trying to share what I've learned. It's way better than just kind of reading the book and it kind of falls out of your head. So if this adds value, it's fantastic. So we'll continue to work through this. So if we go back in here, right now what we've got is a working example that isolates just the host name. I want to change the host name when it stands up. And like you saw, what I was able to do manually was spin up the namespace, and then I'm in it. I'm in the bash. That was that second parameter that was passed in. So it's setting up a new namespace for me, and then it's creating a bash session inside that. And once I'm in the bash session or a process that's running in the namespace, I can change the host name. But I want to be able to do that before the container starts, so I know I'm in the container. And I think Docker creates a random host name for each container that it spins up. So let's modify this a little bit so we can rename the container at startup. So if we go up here, the first thing we'll probably have to do is we'll comment out this, and we're going to do, this is another trick that I learned from Liz, which is we're going to have the process call itself. So it's almost a little recursive inception mind bending going on. But if we do cmd exec.command and we call this particular file, which is, I suppose it's an executable or binary, self, we can do exec. So inside here, it's actually going to call itself, and then it'll go through the switch again, and we'll add a case for child. And that child process will do the host name stuff and the C group later on, and then it'll go back up through and run the other stuff. So append, and we want to do string child. So this is when it's calling itself again, executes, it's changing the subcommand that's being passed in to child, and that is what's going to trigger the case to pull the child function. So then we'll pass in the arguments, os args, and it's going to be the two. Again. So there's that. And again, we only need the UTS to manipulate the host. Right. Okay. So now the next thing, let's go up to the case statement and add that in there. Switch. I suppose it flips either way. It works fine. So add another one for child. What's up, Mitch? Got Mitch in the chat. Old college buddy. Played some Call of Duty. Oh, what other games were around? What was that? This is one my wife calls a fairy game. Aeon or something? Mitch, do you remember? I remember. It was like a WoW competitor. Needless to say, lots of hours spent gaming in college. Let's see here. So much for I probably old is right. Yeah. No, I did play. Well, the funny thing with Diablo 2 was so I had figured out how to install, Aeon, Diablo 2 on Ubuntu, which back then, what was this, 2008, 2009, was kind of difficult. Probably still is. But anyway, I had played that game so much previously in high school and stuff that I didn't need sound. So I got the game working on the laptop on Ubuntu, and it played just fine, but I couldn't get the sound driver to work. But I didn't need it. I heard it all in my head. I'd go through the den of evil and I'd be able to kill stuff, and I'd hear every little action. It was super weird. But that just goes to show, what you put your mind to or what you spend your time doing, it just sticks in your brain. All right, we want the child here. So child, what do we want this to do? We want to parse it and then call another function called child. So run CMD, and we're going to have to move that initial call to create the flag set above the case statement in a second. So what's Mitch saying? Baked in sound. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. All right, so when this is called, let's just print out that no, we don't need a printout. Let's call the parse. That's right. os.args to, and child is being called somewhat like it is essentially a subcommand. So again, I want everything after it, and that's what's going to grab that bash again and bring it through, or whatever I'm passing in. So I'm doing bin bash, and that's what's executing that executable on the file system. And right now it's sharing the file system, but we'll change it to use a different one. We can change it to Alpine, and then we'd have to give a different path to the shell that it's using. All right. Thanks, Adam, for the compliment. Appreciate it. And now in here, wait, where am I? Getting lost. There we go. We need to get the argument again. So cmd run cmd.args. And then we want to call child. And child doesn't exist yet, and it'll yell at me, but that's fine. But what we do need to do, since we're using a flake set for 2 cases, I have to move it. So let's move this just up here. So it makes it happy. And all this would be much prettier if I was using Cobra. So now we need to create the child. And then that child, we will set the system name. And that'll be done with another system call. So if you come down here, or let's create another function, child, and it's going to take just the arg the same way. I guess it could be plural, but the slice of strings. It needs to do that. So in here, I want to do another fump print because I want to see that it's being called properly. That's kind of my debugging I add in here. So from process in the namespace. Because if we were to put it in the main run, it's not inside the process in the namespace, so it would change my actual host name. It wouldn't change the container host name. There we go. Running from namespace, and we want to output what the argument is. Arg. Yeah, that's how real dev. Yeah, I found out I'm not the only one. I don't know if it's people that come from a sysadmin background, but I see some, I don't know, people that have CS degrees do it too. So it's hit and miss. If I'm doing something super tricky, like the logic is pretty crazy, I'll open up the debugger, but that's pretty rare. Pretty rare. So LinkedIn's where it's at, huh, Eric? Oh, interesting. Interesting. I wonder if the Twitter X stream worked. That was a more annoying one. Is I couldn't link to the link because it doesn't let you schedule them. Anyway, it's getting better, I suppose. I don't know. Oh, sprint, yeah, because it adds it because it doesn't add a new line at the end. I'll have to give that a try. I usually use that one, the S. This I call it the sprint F. When I'm trying to concatenate stuff, like combine variables and whatnot. So. All right, where was I here? Oh, yes. We want to call another command. Command inside the command. So what we'll do here is command cmd is going to equal exec. command. And we're going to pass in those arguments again. Arg2. So that would be what's being passed in after the run. os.arg args3. There are any additional. And we need to map the standard outputs, inputs. Adam say, Twitter needed premium to respond in chat. Oh, that's disappointing. Can't even respond in chat on the stream? That's annoying. Huh. Is it premium now? It's not verified? Changing the terms on us. Let's see here. CMD OS equal. I should stop. I should say the full thing instead of STD. It gets confusing. Error. There we go. So we got all that. Now I still have to create the system call to set the host name. So let's do error equal syscall dot set host name. And then I think it has to be coming in as bytes. Byte. And then we can do container. So I want to change the host name to container like I was doing at the command line. There we go. And another. What am I missing here? Oh, I'm missing a comma. So if error equal nil. And then we have to call the CMD to run. So error cmd.run, and this is what's going to execute the setting of the host name. So that should be it for isolating the host name. Switch over. Check that out. So we're running in the container with this argument, and then it hit the child process. So it called itself, went into the child process, our child function, and then said it's still being used, still passing in the bin bash, and then it changed my host name. So if I exit this and do host name, unchanged. So let's just take a quick review of all that. And it's all inside the run. So we're making a system call to create the new namespace, and then we're changing the host name of the system call. And then right there, you've got your code to isolate the host name inside of a namespace, which is pretty cool. So if